Right. It was about 9:05 last night. Offenders were leaving the gymnasium area where they had just attended a church service and were going back to their housing area. And it was at that time that 5 general population offenders bolted towards the fence. One of the picket tower officers saw the offenders approach that first fence. He gave them a verbal order to stop. Those offenders continued on and continued to climb on that fence, and that's when he opened fire with his AR-15 rifle. The other picket heard the gunshots and then opened fire as well. They fired 11 rounds between both of them. And then finally a perimeter patrol officer that was circling the unit came up and fired a round from a 12-gauge shotgun. So in all, 3 of the 5 offenders were shot, and 2 of them suffered serious laceration wounds.
Okay, so basically 3 of the 5 were shot, plus the other 2 were lacerated?
Yes, all 5 offenders suffered laceration wounds to their hands and face. As they were climbing the fence that's covered in razor wire, they received those cuts, and then 3 of them were shot.
How do they manage the razor wire? I mean, that stuff there, and you've got, how many, 3 perimeter fences?
There's 2 perimeter fences there, and it is covered in razor wire, so it will cut you, and then if you make it over, there are correctional officers that are there and will open fire.
Now, do they have anything, throw over that razor wire, jackets, anything like that left behind? Or
it doesn't appear so. It just appears that they just tried to climb the fence.
Any idea how they tried? They just basically think it was a planned type deal or what?
At this time, we just don't know if it was just an opportunity or if it was something that was planned out, but certainly that'll be part of the investigation. But it's unclear at this time. The
officer, basically, he made the verbal order to stop. What is TDC policy on something on escape? Stop them, or what is their actual policy on something like that?
Sure. The officer did give them a verbal order to stop. They did not stop, and so he was authorized to use force at that time, which he did.
Now, normally, is it force, or is it normally deadly force that they're supposed to use? Is there a policy on it?
Well, they're authorized to use force, and they have a rifle that's there, and they have weapons that are available to them, and so those officers did use those weapons to stop this escape.
What about what's the unit status now?
The unit is locked down at this time, as the investigation is ongoing.
At what point do they go and lock down? It's not just escape, you can't do another time.
The unit was locked down last night as soon as the offenders tried to make that escape, and that was done so the officers there can get an accurate count of who's there and who's not there, and it's done so now just to limit the movement around the unit at this time.
How long does something like that stay on? Whenever? Now, they normally unlock down. It's not the only reason they'll do lockdown for going through materials, looking for stuff.
Right, yeah, you'll have a lockdown for a number of different reasons. It could be searching for contraband, or it could be a situation like this where there's a situation at the unit and we need to control the offender, so we'll lock it down.
Now, these were general population, not the death row.
Right. Polinsky unit is a maximum security unit that does house death row offenders. The 5 offenders that attempted to escape were not death row offenders, but general population offenders.
Do you know which one of the or which of the 3 were? Sorry, start it again. Which 5 were? 3 of the 5 were shot.
Yeah, 3 of the offenders were shot. Albin Zelaya, Michael DeWitt, and Jerry McDonald. All 3 suffered gunshot wounds. Zelaya suffered a gunshot wound to the collarbone area, DeWitt to the right thigh, and McDonald to the right arm.
What happens to these offenders now? Do they reclassify, put them in another unit, or what happens?
Well, at this point, these offenders, the 3 that were shot, are still hospitalized. The 2 that suffered lacerations were treated and brought back to the unit. They will face what's called a security precaution designator, which will change how they're classified, and will have some restrictions on where they can be housed. Also, these offenders will face...
Go ahead.
Sorry about that.
You want to catch that?
Hang on. Okay, go ahead. All right. These offenders, 3 of them are still hospitalized. 2 of them were treated for their wounds and then brought back to the unit. All 5 will face attempted felony escape charges.
The sentences, what were the rest of it? What were they all in there for?
They were all in for various crimes, including capital murder, as well as burglary, and all were serving lengthy sentences.
What about the danger of the population, the general area around there? I mean, the housing around there. Is there any problem with people who are living in that area? Was there any danger at all to them, or were they notified at all?
Well, these offenders never made it outside of the unit itself, and so there was no danger to the surrounding areas, and the situation was contained within the unit itself.
Now, who usually actually monitors the perimeter fences? I mean, the inside or the outside? Do they monitor both, or how's it?
Well, there's a number of different security measures that are in place. The tower officers or the picket officers do monitor the perimeter fence, as well as we have perimeter patrols that go around. And so there's several layers of security there. And offenders know that if they approach the fence or if they attempt to climb the fence, then officers can use force against them.
Kind of the coldest night of the year, the wettest year, and the full moon kind of helped them probably spot them a little bit easier.
Certainly, that picket officer did a good job of spotting those offenders and giving them those orders, and they just didn't comply with that, and that's why he had to use force.
Very few escaped really, or attempted escapes, or followed through in TDC. What the last one you had was the Como thing, and that was just wasn't really related to actually an escape through the fence. What about through fences? Any escapes like that?
Occasionally, we'll have situations where offenders do try to scale the fence. It's uncommon, but it does happen.
What about integrity of fence? They were able to get over the fence. Is there something changed in that, or they just got diced up a little bit more brand new?
Yeah, all of the offenders were injured, and again, 3 of them suffered gunshot wounds. That razor wire is there for a purpose. And again, anytime that we have an incident like this, we'll go back and see what worked and what didn't. But again, these 5 offenders were stopped from ever escaping and leaving the unit itself.
I think there was one. I know it dropped. I think that's about it. Yeah, I think